The Police Federation has now made an outlandish claim that police officers are too afraid of repercussions to use the force needed to apprehend violent criminals. I mean, personally, I think they've left a bit off of that sentence, such as police officers are too afraid of repercussions to use the force needed to apprehend violent criminals, and so bully and abuse the non-violent offenders instead. You've probably already seen the video, which I will play at the end of this report because it's too soon into the video to show the fight and I'll probably get demonetised, where a female police constable got ragged about by the hair by a woman suspect while her colleagues simply pleaded with the woman to let go, before the woman managed to escape and run away. Although, granted, her freedom was short-lived and is soon seen after on the floor with two uniformed and what I believe to be two plain-clothed police constables. Head of the Metropolitan Police Federation, Ken Marsh, said in an interview that all this feeds into the public's perception of policing and the reticence by my colleagues to deal with things firmly for complaints and vilification against themselves. People are more content with filming something like this rather than helping. My colleagues need to be firm but fair. They are trained correctly to do so. They need to be reassured that taking action where necessary is what should be done to protect the public. It is escalating. We're seeing more scenarios like that. But my colleagues need to start taking responsibility for each other, protecting each other, and dealing with individuals who are violent and nasty. This incident is said to have stemmed from the fact that the woman had stolen some penny sweets from a newsagent's, and then reports that she had assaulted two men and a woman, and so the control room decided to send a pair of the wettest wet wipes they could find to apprehend her. A former Sussex Detective Chief Superintendent, Kevin Moore, has said that he would definitely have been frustrated if the police officers were under his command, because the incident made them look stupid because they've basically allowed one individual to outmuscle two officers. He said, police officers are perfectly entitled to use reasonable force in order to effect an arrest. The person concerned should have been taken control of and taken down, and if necessary, handcuffed. There are so many people out there who try to do the police down by filming things where the police have had to use force in order to effect an arrest. And when that happens, the first thing is everybody says they're using excessive force and there's no need for it. Now, the reason people say that the police are using excessive force is because most of the time they do. Let's just think back to all the videos we've seen, even just the ones on this channel, where police have used a taser on someone who was not an immediate threat, hit protesters with batons, pushed people with so much force that they've fallen over and been injured, or in some cases died. The police do use excessive force on people who are of no threat, or use tasers or pepper spray on unarmed people, when they should be trained in how to take someone down without using what amounts to a firearm. Police have been allowed for far too long to get away with using their weapons against people who should be taken down using self-defense tactics that the police used to be taught. I mean, how on earth did we manage before tasers and pepper spray? I don't recall all the so-called dangerous suspects being allowed to go free simply because police didn't have weapons to subdue them. No, they used physical strength and combat techniques to take them down. So what's changed other than the police becoming lazy? Kevin Moore said, I think it's going to get worse because police officers are genuinely afraid, especially out in the public arena, to use the force that is necessary. Then if that's how they think, maybe being plod isn't quite the right career choice for them. Now, it does turn out, however, that the woman, when finally arrested, was detained under the Mental Health Act, so clearly had some kind of episode. I'm not for a moment suggesting that if you're having an episode, you should get away with offences, by the way, but if police were educated properly, then maybe they could have identified that the woman wasn't quite compos mentis and dealt with the incident differently. But as we know, the police love to simply rush in and ask questions later these days. It's said that the woman went on to assault more police and racially abuse one of the cops who was arresting her. Ken Marsh from the Police Federation said they are given the correct training to deal with situations like that, and they need not to be concerned at the end that their actions will lead to discipline against them, because that is the concern and why they are not firmer. So if they're given training to deal with situations like that, why do they fail in their approach, and why do so many get found to have used excessive force? 30 years ago when I joined, that scenario would not have happened, he said. And correct, coppers from 30 years ago knew how to handle themselves and had no choice but to use self-defence and restraint training that they were taught back then. But it would appear that that training has simply gone out of the fucking window and been replaced with either wet wipes or bullies, i.e. those who can't deal with a situation and those who overreact to a situation. Marsh added, as long as you act correctly within the powers to defend yourself and others, then no action is going to be taken against you. And that needs to be reassured to my colleagues by senior management who need to stand up and protect my colleagues. If you do your jobs properly, then you'll have nothing to fear. With cameras being used more and more when police interactions are taking place, what do you have to fear if you use justifiable force on someone who's being arrested, or using more force on someone who's at that time a direct and immediate danger to the public? I don't disagree with having to taser someone, for example, if they are a direct and immediate threat to the public or to the police themselves, but with so many instances of tasers and panther spray being used on those who are unarmed, simply because it makes it easier for the police to arrest them, is what's causing these issues with police's actions being more scrutinised. Marsh even criticised the crowd for filming the incident, calling them sickening, asking that the public actually help rather than stand around filming. He said, why would you film that when a police officer is clearly distressed and being treated in an abusive and unnecessary manner? Why would you rather film it than help the protectors? I'm bewildered by that. Well, you've just said it yourself. They're the protectors. We're supposed to be the ones being protected. And that's because you're police yourself and you see things differently from the rest of us. We know that even if we were assistant constable, which, let's face it, shouldn't be needed if they were trained properly, we're still at risk of being arrested ourselves for assault. In any situation where there's 2-on-1, even if the person on their own has done something wrong, we know that a 2-on-1 is a pussy's fight, and any right-minded member of the public knows it's unfair. This was 2-on-1, supposedly well-trained police constables against a woman shoplifter. Personally, I think if two cops can't handle a woman on her own, then they shouldn't be wearing the uniform in the first place.
Let go because you know what the fuck you got done, yeah?
Oh man. He's never getting away from that.
Payback though, isn't it? Payback, isn't it?
You don't need to hold my head, no one's doing that.